Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody, depending on what time you're actually logging in and listening to this podcast. This is Innovate Think Tank, a place to think, a place to strive, and a place to ultimately achieve in business and in life. I am your host, Jason Crawford, and today we're going to talk about stop grinding and start living. But before we dig into the subject matter, I want to actually just share a little bit of a personal story. You know, this is probably, this is episode number 3, and I've been doing this for a little less than a week. Haven't really shared it with many people. I don't know why. It's just something I kind of wanted to do and been tinkering around with a little bit. But I have shared it with a couple people. And one gentleman in particular, he actually walked into my office this evening before I was heading out. Really good guy, just a student of the game of life. Just here's somebody who started with practically nothing and over the course of the years has built himself a very, very successful business. And a lot of it is attributed to the fact that he is just a student of the game of life, just always asking questions, always inquisitive. He's the type of guy that is going to say what they're going to do and then actually do it. You know, so often in this fast-paced, look at me, social media world, we're just surrounded by those that are guys, somebody who does what he says he's going to do and he follows through. Anyway, his question was, I've been listening to your podcast, tremendous value. I'm a student. But what is your end game with this? Why are you doing this? And I was kind of taken back for a moment, just wondering, why am I doing this? Aside from the fact that I actually enjoy doing it and like to ramble and share some knowledge. And, I really didn't have a off-the-cuff canned response for him. So it just kind of made me reflect and ask myself, really, why am I doing this? And at the end of the day, there is no end game. I'm doing this because I want to do it, because I enjoy doing it. And if through sharing this knowledge, I can just help one person, one entrepreneur, one executive, one struggling teenager who wants to get their business off the ground and listens in and finds a nugget of value, then my job here is done. It's exciting for me to actually do that. That is why I'm doing it. So, maybe after we record a couple of these, we'll put them out for public consumption, and we will let you guys out there decide if there's value in this, and we'll go from there. So today, stop grinding, start living. So I referenced the social media, fast-paced world. Look at me, everybody's loud as a motorbike. That's great for this time and age, and I'm a big fan of technology and the speed and the pace and the velocity at which information is hurled at us. And there's so much value in what's out there, but there's also a lot of non-value. We're just going to call it trash. A lot of information of rah, go do this, look at me, I'm hustling, I'm grinding, I'm up 24/7. I don't sleep. I work my ass off. You can't outwork me. I'm not impressed by that. I mean, really, at the end of the day, show me the person who's balanced, who's systemized, who has strategies, who has focus, and is achieving through that process with balance, and then I'm impressed. And what I mean by that, and this podcast is really dedicated to, or the specific audience, if you will, is entrepreneurs and executives alike. And that's such a broad scope. Are entrepreneurs one category and executives another category? No, I think they blend together. There's your executive entrepreneurs, those that, took a dream, turned it into something, and have built it into these amazing businesses. Then there's those that went the traditional college route, punched a clock, worked their way up the executive ladder, and now they're saddled with tremendous responsibility. There's those that are just getting started and out and working their way up that very same ladder. So it's such a broad scope, but again, so much of what is seen today is about the hustle and about the grind. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. Life is a grind. Life is a grind. Get over it. Accept it. It is what it is. And the minute we accept that life is a grind, we're free to start living. because the grind doesn't stop. You talk about the work grind or the work hustle. Great. You make $1 billion. Then what? You're still grinding. You still have the family grind. You have the life grind. You have the health grind. You have the social contribution grind. You have every single grind as we as human beings are programmed and wired to strive and achieve. The grind doesn't stop. So what if we just stop grinding and actually start living? I'm reminded of certain professionals, and I'm a big fan of the armed forces, right? I mean, here's men and women that get up before the sun's up, bust their asses all day long in the name of freedom to defend us so that we can do what we want, when we want, with whomever we want, whenever we please. And you look at the cream of the crop on that, and you look at like the special forces, right? Do you think those guys and gals get up at 3:30 in the morning and think, all right, time to get my grind on. I'm going to grind to protect the country today? No. They have a mission. They're professionals on purpose. They have a charted course, a mission, a set of objectives, things that they need to achieve, and that is their so-called, using air quotes here, that's their grind. They're not grinding. They're professionals on purpose. Using another analogy, do you think a surgeon is scrubbing in for surgery and lathering up and got the soap all up to their elbows and looking over at the other doctors and like, yeah, we're going to grind on this surgery? No. They're professionals on purpose. They're there to do a task. They're there to do a job, and they're professionals. So how do you stop grinding, start living, and be a professional on purpose? By having a plan. It's really that simple. We can make all this fluff and all this rah-rah and let's go get shit done and get motivated, but motivation's fleeting. When the motivation's gone and you're neck deep in the work, what are you following to stay focused? You need a plan. Let's break this down to a few steps. Step 1, know your outcome. If you're grinding or working for the sake of grinding, that's called spinning your wheels, right? Grinding is for coffee, and it has nothing to do with work. You need to know what your outcome is and what you want to achieve. So before you even start the quote-unquote grind, know what you are grinding or working for. Know your outcome. What is it that you want to achieve? And a lot of folks and a lot of well-intended trainers will say, know your why. And that's really important. Why are you doing something? Okay, the why is phenomenal because that gets you excited. But let's talk about something that is beyond excitement and is tangible, is what is the actual outcome that you want to achieve? What is the goal? And that rolls us into step 2. How will you measure that outcome? Step 2, how do you measure that outcome? Let's look at a couple different analogies. Let's say that you are a competitive athlete and you need to work hard to achieve a certain milestone. What is that? Is it a 4-minute mile? Is it 4% body fat? Is it a 385-pound clean and jerk? What is your outcome that can be measurable with a baseline? So how do you measure that account? Let's transition this over to business. Is it a amount of followers on social media? What is that milestone you want to achieve? If you're in sales, is it a number of units sold? If you are in operations, is it a turnover rate of a certain percentage or a quality control rate of a certain percentage? My point being is you have to have a measurable result to know if you are on track. Now let's take that outcome and those measurable results and let's break them down into bite-sized pieces. Bite-sized piece number 1, what is your 1-month outcome? Bite-sized piece number 2, what is your 3-month outcome? Bite-sized piece number 3, what's your 6-month outcome? And your final bite-sized piece is what is your 12-month or 1-year desired outcome? Let's set some milestones. Month 1, month 3, month 6, and month 12 over again. Because if you don't have measurable results or you're not looking at where you've been, where you're at, and where you want to go, how the hell are you going to know if you're making progress or not? You have to have your measurable results. So that's step number 2. So recap, know your outcome. Step 2, how will you measure that outcome? Step 3, and this is where the quote-unquote grinding begins or the work begins, is how do you bridge that gap? Take a hard, honest look at where you're at right now. Take a secondary look at where you want to be, and you'll find that between where you're at and where you want to be, there's a valley. There's a big hole in the middle of the earth, and you have to bridge that difference. How do you bridge that difference? What do you need to do to bridge that difference? So again, we have our milestones already set. What do we need to do to achieve those milestones? So for example, if I'm in sales and my goal or my milestone in month 1 is to sell 5 units, well, I got to know my conversion ratio. I got to know my contact ratio. I got to know that I need to make 500 contacts in order to get 20 appointments so that I can make 5 sales. Right now, this is where business gets done. This is where the rubber meets the road. We are using analytics combined with our work ethic to identify what we need to do, what steps need to be done. So we bridge that difference with what steps need to be done. And then we break those down into bite-sized pieces. So again, let's identify those steps. Let's identify what needs to be done in those steps, and let's break them down into bite-sized pieces. I'm going to use another analogy. I'm a big fan of operations and project management. Okay, project management is all-encompassing, and project management is a big fancy term for you have a lot of shit to get done, and you need to combine all these pieces and put all these pieces in it together so that they all fit nicely together and your puzzle is done at the end of the day. So here we go with project management in putting these pieces together. Let's say you're rolling out a new website, right? You're going to sell widgets on your website, and your widgets they're manufactured in Boston, and your website developer is in Texas, and your graphic artist is in San Jose. Each of those individual pieces, each of those individual parties have specific pieces that they need to get done before you can put that final puzzle together. So let's break those pieces down. Boston, you do A, B, and C. Texas, you do X, Y, and Z. San Jose, you do 1, 2, and 3. You have to identify these pieces, break them down into individual pieces, and then put them in the order that they need to be completed. This could be a whole other podcast on project management. I'm not going to dig too deep into that, but we'll just scratch the surface on that and say you need to know what needs to be done in the order that it needs to be done. Fair enough? Then the next step, put in the work. Plain and simple, put in the work. And you don't have to tell the world that you're working. You don't have to tell the world that you're grinding. You don't have to tell the world that you're hustling. Work in silence and get shit done. Let your results speak for themselves. Now, after you have put these pieces together, you know your outcome, you're putting in the work, what's next? The next logical step is we monitor our progress. This is the most overlooked piece in the grinding era, right? Put your head down and just grind away. If I am trying to get from here to New York, there's a series of steps that need to occur for me to get from here to New York. But I could say, you know what? I'm determined to get there. I'm going to grind. And I'm in Southern California, by the way. And if I put my head down and I just start heading west, where am I going to end up? I'm going to be in the frickin' ocean. Right? If I'm not monitoring my progress to make sure that I'm heading northeast from Southern California, I'm sure as hell not going to end up in New York. And the same principle applies to business. You have to monitor your progress. Remember, we went back to those bite-sized pieces of month 1, month 3, month 6, and month 12. Take those milestones, take a stop, look at the steps that you needed to accomplish. Did you accomplish those steps? And where did those accomplishments place you on your overall journey? Are you closer to your goal or are you further away from your goal? If you're further away from your goal, you better make an adjustment. If you're closer to your goal, put your head down and get back to work. And that's called the final step, adjusting and readjusting. So once you monitor your progress, see where you're at. Are you closer to your goal or further from your goal? If you're closer, no need to adjust. Just keep your ass moving and keep going. If you're further from your goal, then readjust. But we need to do this on months 1, 3, 6, and 12, because if we don't do it frequently enough, we may find ourselves way off track, and then it takes us a long time to get back on track to achieve our goal. But subsequently, if we adjust and look at our steps too often, then we find ourselves adjusting and readjusting so frequently that we just keep spinning in circles, chasing our tail like a freaking dog. So we got to let the system play out. We got to let the steps play out. We have to let things take their natural course as we put in the work. And that's why we monitor at months 1, 3, 6, and 12 and not too frequently. So that's it, guys. Those are the basic steps. I'll give you a quick recap. I know this was a rant and a ramble, but step 1, stop grinding, start living. Realize that life is a freaking grind and it's never going to go away. And the beauty is, the minute you accept that, you're free to live and you're free to work your ass off. You're free to work your ass off towards a goal that will bring purpose and a sense of responsibility to you and your life. Step 2, know your outcome. Right? You need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Step 3, know how you will measure that outcome. Step 4, how are you going to bridge the gap, which also includes what do you need to do to bridge that gap? What steps do you need to do to achieve that? Next step, put in the work. Second to last step, monitor your progress. And your last and final step, adjust and readjust. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for listening to me ramble once again on Innovate Think Tank. If you found value in this, subscribe. If you found tremendous value in it, share it. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for your time, everybody. I'm Jason Crawford, and this is Innovate Think Tank.